Hello, welcome back to another episode of my Garage Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the Iran, the U.S. and Israel conflict, not just how it has affected Americans, but kind of how it's affecting the global stage, I guess, and things of that nature. But there's one thing I wanted to start talking about first is kind of this week. It felt like a weird week. I was able to still do a lot of assignments, but I also felt like I was slacking off a little bit because I was wondering what that was. Because a lot of the time during this week, I usually try to be active and try to do something because I feel like being at my house it's very tiring and it just gets repetitive. And so this week I was doing some active stuff in the beginning of the week, but it kind of fell apart because I've been playing this new game with my friends and just kind of being able to talk to my friends and do all these things. I don't know. It feels tiring. I mean, not tiring playing with my friends, but it feels like it just feels weird to not be doing something that is for the enjoyment of my that doesn't build onto something later. Like this podcast, doing working on this, it feels good to work on it because it feels like I'm building on something for something later, like when I eventually get into whatever field I am or whatever job I choose, that I have knowledge of these things and how it actually affects these decisions, how these decisions affect people. Um, and I don't know, this week, I don't know, it feels really sad learning about these things and like I feel like there's been a lot of bad information that's just been like really depressing this year, and it's made a lot of people, including me, like really upset seeing this new war or tariffs or just hearing about the current state of the world. And it can really cause people to feel like there's no future to look towards. In these situations, I really like to remain hopeful, and what really has given me hope is that this period is how people are standing up right now. Like right now, with the announcement of the battle of Iran or however you say it, people will become more aware of the propaganda that's being used against them and are speaking up. During the Vietnam War and even earlier, many people were supportive of the war, but now with how fast information can travel, people can stay informed and realize why things like this happen and how we can look to the future to change things like this from ever happening again. And I feel having a community that is not afraid to create a change or a better world for the future, it it creates a better world. And I don't know, I just always try to look towards the good side because just being negative all the time, it just really sucks. And just trying to remember that the more that that's being talked about, the more that people are going to realize how bad of a thing that is. And I guess what's always also been causing me stress recently is that it's getting closer and closer to April. And April's really going to be nerve-wracking for me because in April I'm going to learn what schools accepted me and what schools didn't. And even if I do get into the school that I dream of, it feels really weird because the first time around when I got accepted to school, I didn't go because I felt like the school wasn't good enough, and I hopefully that I don't make the same mistakes again, and I know I won't make the same mistakes again. It's just a little bit of doubt in the back of my mind, and anytime I have this doubt, I always try to remember that like I don't know what's gonna happen, and I think what really gives me hope is that I like to say that everything happens for a reason. Like when it came to me going to community college, it made me realize that like a lot of times it made me realize the conflicts in my family and how they affect me and just how I was able to have time to myself to think decisions through and what it is that I really want for myself. Because I feel like if I went straight to school, then I would I wouldn't realize what it is that I want, and I would still be facing these problems that I have, like just being really anxious and just not being able to do what is right, or not, I guess not, yeah, kind of do what is right. And a lot of the time, it feels like it's just, it's just really, I don't know, I feel like my life would just be different if I went straight to school, or I went straight from high school to college, and I wouldn't have been able to get the help that I needed. Um, and just kind of having my family there to support me. Hopefully I'm not mess things up. Okay, but on Monday, March 3rd, the Dow had lost over $1,000 over the weekend, and the Nasdaq, last week, the last week of February, the Nasdaq dropped, but was able to recover some of the value that it's lost, and it's been steady, and that's kind of getting back to the economy and just kind of what's been going on in the world. But basically, and also the S&P 500 has not lost much and has kind of stayed steady throughout the week. And this is as of March 2nd. Sorry, I just had in my notes that it was a different day. But getting into what's been going on in the world since the news of the U.S. and Israel's attack on Iran has been announced, it has affected not just U.S. gas prices, but global gas prices. The U.S. has not been the only country or the only place to be marked by inflation. The European Union has reached a CPI that has exceeded economists' predictions, which was 1.9% higher than a year earlier, and in January there was a 1.7% rise from the last month. Coupled with the fact that energy prices are going to be greatly affected because of the conflict, economists are predicting that inflation will rise even more in the EU. And how this will affect the US, it's going to be very similar. Basically, Brent crude oil is used as a benchmark to compare oil prices, and it's much like how people use indexes to predict or just see how well an economy is performing, and just kind of a benchmark test to see how the economy is performing. And right now, it is sitting around $80 a barrel, and it's predicted to reach prices of $100 or around $100. And before this, it was sitting closer. I should probably have this up, but it was definitely lower than before this conflict started. And if this is going to happen, where it's going to reach around $100, then the EU's inflation problems could worsen. This problem that the EU is facing with a more expensive oil price could reach countries around the world that get their oil from countries like Iran or countries in the Middle East, because this conflict isn't going to just affect Iran. It's going to affect the whole Middle East, because there's definitely bound to be accidents where missiles aren't going to be landing in the right spot, or Iran's going to be doing something and it's going to mess up, and it's going to affect other countries, and it's just going to affect countries that have to go through Iran to deliver their oil. And a lot of countries in the Middle East are going to be affected, because when they are delivering their oil, it's going to be a much harder process to get around, especially if there's going to be roadblockers preventing civilians from crossing certain areas. It's going to cause a lot more buildup of traffic, and it's just going to affect the whole area. And this conflict can bring rise to a new set of problems in which the U.S. is facing record highs. A potential upside to this conflict is that it could slow down inflation, since it could slow down it could slow down countries or companies expanding, and this could reduce inflation, since companies aren't going to be spending as much and they're not going to be needing to raise prices as much. So that could be a potential upside of this conflict. And since the EU doesn't necessarily use a lot of oil, this problem may not have that great of effect on the EU inflation or the European Union, but on the other hand, when the Russia-Ukraine war started, the EU was hit by an increase in inflation, even though back then when the Russia-Ukraine war started, it was around they used around the same amount of oil and energy as before. And with the rise of the conflict, as many times when this thing happens, policymakers have to see how this conflict is going to unfold. And the reason they're going to need to wait to see how long this is going to be is because they're going to need to strategize and properly plan for this conflict and just make sure that they don't make any rash decisions that result in consumers facing a lot of backlash of this conflict. And that's kind of how this conflict has affected other countries or continents, to say that. And the next topic I want to get into is the labor market report was far worse than economists expected and was far worse than January's report. In the month of February, 92,000 jobs were lost, pushing unemployment to 4.4%, which was pushed up from 4.3% in January, or pushed up from January, which was 4.3%, was a 0.1% increase. Even though relatively it isn't that big of a jump, it can show signs of weakening labor market. And compare this to 2024. Unemployment has been increasing in 2024, or it's been increasing since 2024, because in 2024, 186,000 jobs were created every month on average. Then in 2025, I'm not completely sure on the exact number of this because I'm getting conflicting sources and I wasn't able to find the official labor markets reports from 2025. But I think I said this number previously in a past podcast or a past episode, but I'm getting reports of 49,000 jobs on average were created each month in the year of 2025. And if this pattern continues and if the president does not do anything about this to regulate this loss of jobs within an already weakened economy, inflation can rise, and that can lead to a whole new set of world problems in which it doesn't affect the U.S., but the U.S. allies. It affects everything because the U.S. will not be able to pay back debts because the Fed or the central bank is going to be giving out loans and in trying to get these companies out of debt, and because of this, companies' spending is going to be low. And when we are delivering and when we're trading and doing these things with other countries, their prices are going to be greatly affected because these corporations are going to need to try to make back their money. And this isn't just because of people losing their jobs, but also outside factors such as deportation, which has decreased the number of reported workers. And if I'm reading this right, according to reports from the DHS, almost 6 million people have been deported. And this could have a major effect on the job market. As well, in February, factors such as strikes, specifically healthcare strikes, are reported in non-payroll employment, since many, while striking, do not get paid, which has affected reports. In March, or whatever month these strikes are over, we can expect to see an increase in labor for that month, but unemployment has been increasing in the past 3 of the past 6 months. And this has added this back and forth that companies have prepared for tariffs. And sorry, a little bit of a stutter, but because of this back and forth that companies have to prepare for tariffs, has also affected the labor markets, and why a lot of companies are firing more people and not hiring as much people as say before these tariffs and these problems occurred. Like in an example in 2024 when there were so many jobs being created. As well, the hiring process has slowed down because some employers expect artificial intelligence to take over jobs. And I find this just to be plain stupid. I feel like the most AI will ever do is just be a tool to streamline the process, just as computers streamline the workplace. Additionally, with the money and the amount of debt that these AI companies are accumulating, what will prevent them from going bankrupt, and what will prevent them from not selling out? Because we can already see how these companies are already selling out to the government, and making government contracts with the government, like how OpenAI I'm pretty sure Sam Altman signed a deal with the U.S. government, and OpenAI has progressively become one of the worst AI models out of all of them. You can see how many people it has affected, with a lot of people, with how the AI model is coded to be. It's kind of this like thing that's just like really supportive, and what the original company that they wanted to sign with, Anthropic, they had some restrictions on what the AI model could do and what it couldn't do, just to protect the people that it's going to be used to attack and do all these other things. And Anthropic had these restrictions, and the U.S. government didn't like that, and especially Trump. And it happens time and time again. Anytime Trump doesn't like something, he goes on Truth Social and just makes a rant about how it's a lunatic left company. But I'm supportive of these ideas that Anthropic had restrictions on it. And the only way that I can see these AI companies, other than making government contracts, um, or selling, the only way that they can make money is that these AI companies will sell a special type of AI firmware directly to companies or corporations or firms, and the model that these companies uh, are using is not sustainable. And I'm really hopeful and would like to believe that companies will not pay more than just a subscription fee to have AI to be part of their company. Just how everyday consumers get are able to participate into this world of AI. And I really hope that AI doesn't make a direct deal where these AI companies are or these companies that are buying AI are not vastly overspending just to have this to make their job 1% easier. Um, or what these AI companies could hope for is making a deal with these companies that will pay back the amount of money that was invested. And what is also added to this increase in unemployment is that the Trump administration has slashed the federal workforce by limiting programs such as DEI. Kevin Hassett, the director of the White House's National Economic Council, believes that this is a one-off occurrence. But if that were to be a one-off occurrence, what does that mean for the other 2 or 3 months in which strikes and other factors were not into play? What does this mean for what is to come in the following months for the average American, where the hiring process has become so much harder? With the rise in unemployment, the Fed has another factor that they need to consider when they meet and decide whether or not to cut inflation rates. And going back to how hard it's become to get a job, for the past like 2 weeks, I don't know, this kind of sounds embarrassing, but I've been trying to look for a job. But anytime that I looked on job posting sites that are going, it doesn't really seem that helpful, and it just feels like I'm shooting in the dark, just trying to get an entry level job at like the grocery store, or just something very simple. And it just feels so much harder than it was before. And I just really hope that things start to improve, because right now a lot of things is just very depressing, and it seems like a lot of things are not going right, especially in the United States and in the world. And I just really hope that things change or turn around, and people are able to realize what the problems are, and be able to face them and help everybody. Or I know that sounds like such a big ask to help everybody, but just to be able to create a better world in which everybody has these opportunities to be able to start their own company, or just be a part of something. And going back to the Fed, um, factors such as an increase in energy prices, which many continents such as Europe are already facing, are causing inflation to rise for them, and it's going to have an effect on the U.S. shortly, as we can see later, as I'm about to talk about. And this brings in a hard decision to become even harder for policymakers to decide what is going to be the next steps and what should happen next. The Fed has had the goal of inflation being at 2% for the past 5 years and has struggled very greatly to reach that goal. Oh, excuse me. The rise in unemployment has brought into questions how well the Fed has been doing at protecting the labor market and how well they've been doing at their jobs in general. And with the Fed's election coming up, it will bring even more pressure on Jerome Powell to be to be elected once more as the Fed chair. And in this next meeting, it will bring up struggles on what the next steps are going to be to protect the United States economy and the United States the United States' citizens, and what should happen to fix this economy and this unemployment problem. And if unemployment in the next coming months stays at a steady decrease, this will bring into question how strong the labor market is. A strong economy has consumer spending, and because of that, it allows companies to spend that money, and this helps the government through taxes and other things like that. And then eventually it helps the people through roadways, infrastructure, social programs, and other things. But with adjusting for inflation and the income that people have because of that, it can greatly affect consumer spending and put great constraints on the amount of money that they can be able to spend. And I already see it. I mean, when you see grocery prices and how much they've increased, especially for a family of four like mine, and just seeing over the years how much it's increased, and even with food, you can see like 20 years ago how expensive how inexpensive fast food was, and now prices have tripled, and it's just been such a steady increase that has affected everybody. And the next thing I want to talk about is compared to the EU as of March 6, 2025, since the conflict between Iran and the US and Israel has started, the benchmark of the United States oil has reached $90. And this is a 36% increase this week. And it probably has increased since Friday or Saturday, since more things have transpired. Um, uh, Companies, in light of seeing the U.S. and Israel ramp up military buildup, expected and made plans to react to whatever was going to happen. But companies did not expect to see what Iran did with their counterattack, which was powerhouses that lined up the Persian Gulf were attacked, and this made whatever expectations that these companies had obsolete because of the great effect that this had. And I already said this, but since the last time, more than 72 hours, this conflict has lasted more than 72 hours. And it is possible to say that no matter the outcome of this, the U.S. has lost. I want to keep this brief, but almost $900 million per day is spent on the military because of this conflict. Each day since, what is it? I think it was February 20. On Saturday, whatever day this started, $900 million was spent every day. And this money could be spent on better purposes. But since the inception of this country, it has wanted to bring freedom and liberation to other countries. And I find this to be total BS. And since we can see this whenever this happens, all it does is cause more problems, and all it does is solely benefits corporations with the lie they tell themselves that it's going to be the better the help of the American people. And we can see this with how the US acquired Hawaii when I I don't remember what company it is, but they overthrew the queen because they wanted to not only for a military base, but also for companies to be able to plant bananas and farm bananas and have tropical fruits. And this is why Hawaii became a state. And it feels like the working class has been fighting the same battle since the inception of this country, from slaves to later industrial workers to railroad workers to miners. It's been the same battle that based on social Darwinism, and this has been proven not to be the case many times. And I just find it very sad and just kind of depressing that it's just kind of been the same cycle over and over again, and nothing's really been done. And and I can't just blame the government. I also have to blame the people, because they know that this is a problem. They see that this is a problem, but they just stay compliant with the way that things are, and they don't fight. They don't fight this, and I find it very sad, honestly. And since the conflict of the Iran, because of the reports of Iran, and as this conflict has unfolded more, this was on Thursday. I looked again to see how well the Dow and all these other indexes were reporting and how they were functioning. And since markets have closed and we're not able to see the effects of this of the labor market, since it was released on March 6th on Friday after, and the effect was past closing, so a lot of people weren't able to see how this affected it. But we still have to wait to see. We'll probably see this on Monday, but as of now, the Dow is down around 3%, and the Nasdaq is down 1.9%, which might be worse next week, because the Nasdaq is a representation or benchmark of the tech sector, and this is and we would see a greater effect on the Nasdaq if it were to be from if OpenAI were to release a decision or release reports where their revenue was almost nothing, and that's how we would see an effect in the Nasdaq. But the S&P 500, which is kind of a benchmark for the whole economy, and just to see how things are actually performing, the Nasdaq is down 1.3%. And this is also due to labor market reports. We're going to have to wait to see how it's going to affect. And like the Dow, it might be lower next week because of the reports. And so that's kind of what I had to say about this episode. And I hope you guys please support, and I guess wish me luck on my college journey to see what it is that whatever school I get into, and to be able to make the best out of it. Because I don't, not to sound like messed up in my family or anything, but I don't know if I could spend another year here, because in high school I didn't technically live at my house. Majority of the time I kind of stayed with family, because my school is further away, and because I thought it was a better opportunity for myself. And I honestly don't know if I'll be able to do it. I'll probably have to, if I don't get into whatever school, or if I don't get into school at all, that would be terrible. I really hope to I'll probably move out next year, and my last year in or my third year in community college, I'll probably spend it at moved away, or probably somewhere else, because I don't know if I could do another year, which would be a scary decision, but we'll have to wait and see. And hope, and I can't really honestly, I can't really think about it, because the more I think about it, the more it fears me out, because I really don't know what's planned for me, what's gonna happen, and what I'm gonna be doing with my life. But I just gotta hope for the best, and just kind of hope that whatever decision happens, it might be good, it might be bad, and I just gotta learn to accept it and move on. And I want to say thank you guys, and please continue to watch and support.